You are an attendee. I'll promote you as a panelist.
And I will share the screen. Just figured it's easier for you guys to be able to look at hopefully the full size. Yes, perfect. Kisses. All right. Excellent. Before I get into the plans, again, my name is Chad Frost. I'm with Kent Frost Landscape Architecture. We are based out of Mystic, Connecticut. Have lived here and have worked here for 20 years. My kids are products of the Groton school systems. Got one that's a sophomore at UVM right now, one that's a junior at Fitch, and one in the middle school. So happy to be here on behalf of the Board of Ed representing this project. As you are aware, the Board of Ed is seeking relief from section 8.5-3.D.1, which is the light pole height for installation of athletic field lights on the 3 new athletic fields that were built at the Groton Middle School. The unusual hardship that we have here is a direct conflict within the zoning regulations. Section 8.5-3.C allows for outdoor recreational lighting, and specifically allows for outdoor playing field lighting. However, section 8.5-3D1 with the following section limits the height of that to only 20 feet, or limits the height of all outdoor lighting to 20 feet poles. It is impossible to light an athletic field to comply with the primary regulating code, which is the ANSI IES code, which is RP 620, which sets the lighting standards for safe athletic play on athletic fields. And we just simply cannot do it from a 20-foot pole. If you can imagine from a 20-foot pole, right, you'd have to have your lights basically horizontal, just going straight out with a extremely bright to throw the light all the way across the field. That creates a very hazardous playing surface, tremendous amount of glare for anybody in the proximity, and a tremendous amount of light trespass. That would also be in direct conflict with your section 8.5-3.C, which is that outdoor recreational lighting where it's allowed. The only way to properly light a field is from a height of 60 or 70 feet, where the lights can be properly aimed downward, which is required under your 8.5-3C.1, and to meet the full cutoff requirements, which is the following section, the 8.5-3C.2. As hopefully we'll show you in the document tonight, we'll clearly illustrate that by raising that height, we can properly light those fields as it is intended by your section for outdoor athletic field lighting. And briefly, I'll just touch on the need for this also. We have the 3 new fields, they're great. However, all sports fields are all sports teams, with the exception of football, of both the middle school and the high school, utilize this single field for all of their practices and home games, right? And when you add that up, so this field is highly used. You add that up, there's just not enough daylight hours for them to be able to accomplish that. That's about, by my count, when you count women's, men's sports, JV, varsity, it's about 13 teams that need time on that field. It's one field. And so we just cannot accomplish that when in the daylight hours. And so with that, I'll go through these and I'll make some comments that we received last night at our planning and zoning referral meeting. So, well, I should back up. Quickly, I think everybody knows where we're talking about, but just as orientation, this is Fort Hill, the intersection, Groton Long Point Road. We're all sitting right about here. Across the street is Fitch, St. Mary's, and then the Groton Middle School site. The site of the fields, the softball is closest to the intersection, the practice field is in the middle, and the synthetic turf field is on that southern end. Zooming in, again, just for orientation, we have Fort Hill along here, and this is the beginning of Groton Long Point Road. This is St. Mary's Church, Fitch's property, and the Groton Middle School property. So we have the softball field, the practice field, and the multi-use synthetic turf field. You can see the edge of the parking lot for the middle school, and the buildings just off the screen on the top. What we're proposing is 4 poles on the multi-use field. So there are 4 70-foot tall poles in order to get the adequate lighting. On the practice field is 4 poles that are all 60 feet high. We can do a little bit light or a little bit lower height there because the field is smaller. This is meant to be just practice. It's natural grass. So we can do lower lights there. And then in the softball, we have 4 poles again. The 2 closer to the infield are lower because the light doesn't have to be thrown as far. We're lighting just the infield, and the 2 in the outfield are the 70-foot high poles in order to get the light across the entire outfield. As you'll see here in the photometrics, again, kind of a little bit outside of your necessarily purview on variance, but I just wanted you to be able to see it. We're required, the reason we need this is we're required to get a certain level of light. There's basically class 1, 2, or 3 fields as far as lighting goes. And so the lowest class is high school class. And then above that is college, above that is pro, right? So if we've been to a pro game, they light it up like it's daytime. At night, for high school athletics, we're required for a multi-use field like this, we're required to get into the mid-20s or 30-foot candles. And if you're familiar with like foot candles in normal areas where you're talking are 1 or 2 or 3 foot candles, an athletic field again has to be at that minimum of a 25 to a 30-foot candle with on the plane surface. What's phenomenal about the lighting technology now is just how quickly that light cutoff can happen and how directly it can be aimed on the field and how much little light goes off the field. And we'll show you that in a second. So that's the multi-use field. The practice field, again, slightly lower poles, the 60-foot poles. We actually get a little bit better photometrics there because it's a smaller field and the light throw works in our advantage. And I'll just note that field's not large enough for like full-size high school games. It's just meant for practice. And then the softball field, by requirements, the infield needs to be at a higher lumen count. So that's where we're averaging the 50s because of the infield play and how the action with the ball, and you can't have any shadows coming from any particular area during play. And then the outfield can be at a lower wattage, so that's in the 30-foot candles, high 20s to low 30s for the foot candles there. And then on those poles, because we know if we have lighting going on, we have games or practices even after dark, we need to get people back and forth from the parking area to the field they're playing on. So on those poles, we also have some path lights built into them so that we can provide safe access back and forth from a parking lot to the desired field. All of these lights can be controlled independently. So if there's a softball game going on in the field, the lights in the softball field can go on. The lights along the pathway can go on, but the lights on the other 2 fields don't have to be on, presuming there's nothing going on. And likewise, you can then turn the lights off on the softball field and allow access to everybody to leave and then turn those lights off independently. All of that is controlled both on-site as well as remotely. The other path lights we have, just to point them out, the path lights, and this is again, when you're talking that 1 or 2 foot candles along from the edge of the multi-use field on the pathway out. And this photometrics is what I think is pretty impressive. This is the perimeter boundary of the property. And you'll notice this isn't truly the boundary of the property, but by the time you're at the road, we're at 20 to mid-20s foot candles on the field. By the time you're at the road, you're at 1 or 2, right? So that cutoff is extremely sharp. By the time you're down at the—
How'd you do that?
I wish I could take credit. It's amazing LED technology, and I'll show you the light fixture in a minute, but they can aim them so unbelievably right now. That down at the road in front of the parking area, you're at 0 foot candles. And so for most of the perimeter, even along here at the intersection where we have these light poles on softball that are 70 feet tall, we're at 0 to 1 foot candle at the edge. And then they still have about a 15 to 20 foot hill up to the roadside from the playing surface.
So the fixture bank has shields on it, maybe?
Yes. Yep. Extremely shielded and extremely aimed fixtures. And I'll show you those here right now. So these are all the poles. Every single one of them that was going out there. This first one. This is the softball infield lights. So the lower ones, and you can see there as I zoom in, the full shield on the entire fixture. The LEDs are hidden up inside here, and you'll see the photo of it before. Even the part that hangs down here, their lights aren't in there. They're up here in the top, fully aimed down. Every single LED chip gets aimed and focused for a very specific spot. And then even In the factory, they can design exactly where each light goes based on the programs, and they put a lining mark in the factory so that when they bring it out to install it, they know it's going exactly where it's supposed to go. There's nobody sitting up there trying to like point and shoot the light. These are the lights that I mentioned for path lights. There's some of them on the softball field that also do additional lighting, low-level lighting right at the field. And then we have the path lights mounted on each of them. So that's a 60-foot pole. This is an example of the 70-foot pole. Something you've all probably seen on a lot of athletic fields. You know, you have the concrete base, you have about a 10-foot offset, and then all the electrical components are up high, so nobody can access them. But that, again, every single pole, they're basically similar. There's tiny little differences, guts and specifics of each one, but that's the 60 and the 70-foot pole for each field. These are the spec sheets. So again, the light's all the way hidden up inside. That's the size of it, not a huge fixture when you think about what we're used to from the ones that used to be almost like 3 feet across, the HID fixtures. Pretty small, very compact, very energy efficient, as I'll show you in a second. I'll just point out here down here on the cut sheet, 57K, again, probably not what you care about at all, but from a light temperature perspective, that is on the wider, bluer type of light. That's the light that's required for athletics. So you can see a softball or lacrosse ball coming at you at 90 miles an hour. Yep. And then this is the footing details. Again, you guys probably don't care. Next, Musco Lighting is the manufacturer the schools have selected to go forward. They are by far the leading, I'd say worldwide as far as athletic lighting goes, and definitely nationally. And they are a member of the Dark Sky Association to make sure we get full cutoff compliance. This is a great example of where we've gone from a technology perspective from lighting. Back in the 70s, which is, I would say, if you go to Fitch in the football field, our lights are basically like that. They're older than the 70s, but it's a giant metal halide that just, you kind of aim it and shoot a whole bunch of light. There's no shield. There's no real technology. It's just a really strong light bulb pointed in a direction. By the late 80s, they started realizing we have to do a better job of aiming and directing, and they started putting shields around the sides of the lights, and then noticeably the shields on top of the lights, the little eyelids to try to kind of help focus light down. You still have the same amount of light, now it's just bouncing around and going in different directions. By the early 2000s is when the LEDs finally got to the point they could start utilizing LED technology, and we're basically retrofitting it into those old bulbs that's still trying to focus the light. And now what we're looking at is basically this, right? So that the entire LED component is all housed up inside of it. Everything's angled down very sharply, so that you hardly even notice that there's a fixture mounted up there. So from a glare perspective, you don't see the light source unless you're actually physically on the field where the light is aimed down. And that represents the same amount of light on the field, the same amount of wattage of light reaching the ground in all those instances. Talking about light cutoff, this is a great example. So again, this is a new LED technology. As you can see, you can't see the light source itself, but you can just kind of see the glow of where the housing would be. The light is cut off to right at the field, just onto the track around it. There's bleachers in the background here that you can't even see. They're not even getting lit up, right? There's trees off to the side that basically one branch that's hanging far enough forward over the track gets lit, but everything else is not. So extreme cutoff of the light to really minimize any light trespass. And I would even note in the foreground here in the bleachers, right? They don't have any of the extra lights on for the bleachers. So this wouldn't even be considered safe to allow the public to go back and forth because of the shadow. There's not enough light cast in the bleachers without additional lighting with just the field lights on. To further hit you guys over the head with that point, this is the tennis courts. Again, great example of how fast that light cutoff can happen, right? Within parking spaces, the light cutoff is down to 0 and really focused everything onto the courts themselves. This is the very simple diagram of why height is important. At 40 foot high, you really have to aim the light out a long ways in order to get enough light onto the playing surface And also, it's not just the plane surface, but it's up in the air above the plane surface, right? It's great if you can see the soccer ball on the ground, but when the lacrosse ball is going 30 feet high, you need to be able to see it and not have it above the light if you were trying to shine light straight across. And obviously, the lower you go and the more horizontal you go, the more trespass you get onto adjoining properties. This is an example of Quinnipiac University tennis courts. This is the difference. These next two slides are the difference of 15 feet of height difference. So this is the lower pole. If you're on a lower pole trying to get light, the adequate numbers of light on all edges of the court, you can see how far out the light spill goes around the courts. And then 15 feet higher where you can truly aim the lights down and get what you need, how much more focused the light is and how much less light trespass there is going off of that. Quickly then to talk about last night, we were part of the referral was to planning and zoning last night. I think it's important to note that no commissioners spoke in opposition to the referral. Most seemed to agree with everything we talked. I literally went through this exact same presentation last night. And there was some that were in strong support of the athletic field lighting. The chairman acknowledged that there was an error or a conflict within the regulations and that they need to begin to address the process to rectify that conflict and essentially directed the staff to do so. This signifies to me that they acknowledge the hardship that we seek relief from tonight. They're endeavored to fix it in the future. However, the school board and by extension, the student athletes should not be punished and made to wait for the lengthy zoning rewrite to occur, which is why we seek the relief tonight, which you are empowered to grant us through the state statutes. The planning and zoning actions also indicate that this relief or the variance can be granted without substantial impairment of the intent, purpose, integrity, or regulations of the plan of conservation and development, which is part of your requirements, obviously. One of the things that they did talk about last night is they did like the presentation. They wanted to kind of go towards this, but they wanted, if you were so inclined to approve it, and if you wanted some additional stipulations to say, yes, we like this additional height, we're okay with it, but we want to make sure it's this light with this kind of focus and not something else. They look for potential other specifications that could be made as an additional stipulation if you so choose. Today, we just received this, and this afternoon, this is the true technical cutoff or true technical testing from the light source that we're going to be using that shows all the exact cutoffs from a foot candle perspective in every direction. This can be a little bit challenging to read, but what they're proposing is the light source itself will be mounted at a maximum horizontal angle of 30 degrees. Most of them will be even sharper than that. And then within that, the light source in here is actually aimed, it's not aimed completely at zero, it's also aimed down. So if you look at the numbers on this side, 0 right here in the middle, that's what this is. This 0 degrees horizontal, 0 degrees vertical is that line. And so this 0 here, if you go up from that, basically we get to 13 degrees is where we get no light coming out of the top. So if you're thinking about light cutoff and light trespass, and especially dark sky compliant, the light coming straight out of here, the most that ever goes up from there is 13 degrees. The light itself is angled down at 30 degrees. Most cutoff fixtures are required full cutoff if they're at 180 degrees, completely flat, right? So we're significantly lower than that with these cutoffs, and would be comfortable if you wanted to so make it a condition that all the fixtures be angled at 30 degrees or more if you felt that was necessary. And so without trying to take up a ton of your time, and welcome to take questions, basically in closing, we feel that the variance should be granted because we meet your 3 criteria as required for your findings. This hardship does not generally affect other parcels within the district because residential properties do not have full-size athletic fields on their private property. This hardship only affects this parcel and the adjoining Fitch High School parcel, which I'll also note also received a variance in the recent past for athletic field lights on the baseball field. This hardship is not created by the owner, but by the regulations that allow for this use, but don't allow for it to be done properly. And this hardship is not financial. If anything, it's quite to the contrary. The school board and the town council have appropriated a significant amount of money to provide this expanded use, both for the students, athletes, as well as for the general public. So we respectfully request that you grant this variance due to all the rationale presented, as we feel this project meets the intent of the regulations. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Doug? That spec that you just received today?
Yep.
Is that's the spec that's used for all your plans essentially?
Correct.
So the one that's gonna be the installation spec.
That is the one that is to be installed. And what they basically had in the discussion last night was, we don't want to approve a height and then have the school board go and find a lesser manufacturer that might not aim the light as well and switch. So they wanted to guarantee it would be the same.
So we're marking that as an exhibit, is that right?
Right. That's right.
That was the only question I had.
Bill?
Very nice presentation. You see, what did you call the area that was not illuminated, say outside the playing field? You used several phrases there. So my light dissipates.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Within, you saw in your examples there, 15 feet, or remember one example where you were
Yeah.
showing us a car that the light did not illuminate beyond the car?
yeah, the light trespass, cuts off very sharply. Very
Okay.
early. Yeah.
Is there any way to maybe phrase this in a way that the light will not trespass beyond 15 feet of the field? Is that reasonable or?
I don't know. I mean, the zoning requires that we don't trespass beyond the property line. And so I'd be, the way that they've run their calculations, I can't tell you they cut it off at the field because that's what they're required to provide us is exactly what is that.
The regulation specifically show the height of the pole.
Right,
Right.
right. So that's what we're really, trying to deal with. And so I'd be reluctant to try to say there's a number of 15 feet or 20 feet or 25 feet. I'd say we will definitely meet the intent of the regulations to make sure there's no light trespass off the property, but I just wanted to show you just how quickly that is, even from a 70-foot pole. My guess is when you first read that, it sounds like it's a huge pole, especially going from a 20-foot height. Seems like a very big stretch, which is why I wanted to show you why we need that kind of height, because it's very intentional to get the lighting where it needs to be.
Makes sense. Maybe the next level of technology is going to allow us to make the cutoff right at the end of the field or something.
It's getting crazy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any question I had, for years, you could never have nothing over 20 feet in Groton because of the airport.
Right.
Mm.
No matter what you want to do, it had to be less than 20 feet or at 20 feet. So has that changed?
So-
where's the airplanes fly?
So excellent question, and I completely admitted to even answer it, but all of these poles do have an FAA light on the top of them. They all have to be required. We are in the flight path. So there is a full FAA review. Based on everything we can tell, glide paths and all that, we're above it. We should be totally fine. But we can't go to them for their approval until we get local approval. But we know we have to have the FAA light on top. So even when the lights are off, we will see the little blinking red light. Same thing is on top of the school.
Right.
And same thing is on top of the brand new lights that were installed at Groton Tech Field as well.
And it'll also have emergency power to those lights.
Correct.
So if the main power goes out.
Right.
They'll be illuminated.
Would it be correct to say that the 20-foot light did not require FAA approval?
I would say 20-foot light, but not
That's
required.
probably why
Yeah.
it was in the regulation.
But it still depends on where it is.
Sure,
So,
yeah,
I mean,
right
if-
under the airport would be different.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know, Tom, maybe you can answer this. Is it possible the contradiction concerning the light, the height of those poles, is there anywhere in the regulations for this zone that fields aren't allowed, the athletic fields aren't allowed?
No.
Okay. I'm just wondering how we got to that point.
So I think the 20-foot was based on the FAA regulation. That was probably where they came from,
Okay.
the flight path. And I think it's also due to outdated technology.
And honestly, I think it was really, when you read through the way it's written, you have outdoor recreation lighting activity that's allowed, and then right underneath the light pole. When you read this is all geared towards parking lot lighting, the 99.9% of the lights that deal with in zoning. And I don't think anybody ever, nobody's installed athletic field lighting since the new zoning rewrite went in, so nobody's had to test this yet. So that's why we found the conflict and needs of relief.
And
And it's for the technology too that allows you to implement. higher poles, better lighting overall. I've never heard of that. That's pretty amazing.
Bruce?
I think the full cutoff fixtures will probably solve most of the problems. They work really well. I'm familiar with them because as an amateur astronomer, I'm involved in that dark sky thing. And we certainly have a problem where we are over in Mystic where nobody uses full cutoff fixtures. But aside from that, have you actually had the opportunity to see any of these 70-foot poles lit up like they're supposed to be lit up?
Yeah,
in the
they're-
area?
Absolutely. Oh, well, then, I mean, Grosso Tech
Rosso Tech
has
has?
them right now.
Okay, so we have an example that you've been able to see and it works.
Yeah, they have a slightly different, they went with a different fixture type, if you will. Theirs is like a vertical array as opposed to a horizontal array. But same height, full height, same LED type technology.
So they've already been through this process or they were not part of it?
They don't have to.
Okay,
They're the state. They gotta do it without asking you for permission.
okay.
Where are their fields? Is that down the hillside down below?
Right beside the fields that we're talking about. If you, yeah, they're down a little bit lower, but yeah, you see their fields and you see their lights from these. fields.
So if I'm at the middle school and I look over that down, and that's where their fields are?
Right there.
Okay,
You can watch play on the field from the field.
okay. So but their poles.
Their poles are shorter because they're starting at a lower
Yeah,
level.
okay.
Yeah.
So what, and this pictures here, what is that?
I don't know. I haven't seen that picture.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm done.
First of all, it's on cal. So I couldn't imagine 70 feet. I looked up telephone poles about 40 feet.
Yep.
I went to Washington Park today because my granddaughter plays those foolery out there. And I called Groton Utilities. How tall are those poles? You're on hold for 10 minutes. They come back, they said they're 80 feet.
Okay,
So it gave me a perspective
I would buy that.
of what the poles look like.
And that's utilizing older technology lighting on it for sure.
Exactly. Well, I do have a couple of concerns. First of all, the fields are used when, from September to June?
Basically, yeah, and where the light is definitely needed in those shoulder,
Okay.
seasons for sure.
And the all-purpose field is used for what sports?
Every field sport except football, and quite honestly, football is asking to be able to participate on it for practice because they need to practice on it in order to be ready to play other teams on synthetic turf.
Still,
Soccer, lacrosse,
cross.
field hockey, football practice.
On the
Both middle school,
all-purpose field?
yes, both middle school and high school men's and women's teams varsity JV.
Okay, but one slight correction. It's only used by the schools during those periods.
Correct,
It's available for community use the rest of the year through the summer
correct,
also.
correct. And right
Okay.
now, there's no community use on the field because there's no time available to it. So all the youth activities, youth soccer, youth lacrosse, don't have access to the field.
Yeah, but up at this cross games, my grandson plays across. I've seen the use of the practice field. One of my granddaughters is in 7th grade, she's on track. The problem I have is the softball field. Whoever designed it wasn't thinking clearly. The line's looking field. The designated parking for that field is either at the middle school or at Fitch. It's over 1/8 of a mile from most parking lots out to the field. Now, I happen to be handicapped, I was a walker. Okay. The locals know to park at St. Mary's, which was not the original plan. I can't get from St. Mary's to this walker. So I pull up on that grass strip west of the sidewalk.
Yep.
So, and the people, there was a game with Westerly and a game with Ledger, I think. Those people didn't know where to park. They parked all along Groton Road.
I saw it as well.
Okay, then somebody at the last game had the nerve to put a sign on next to the stones on that grass thing. Please do not park on the grass. Well, I'll go across the street and turn myself in if I get arrested. I'm gonna park up there. I'm saying, that is the worst. Now, are you saying that this softball field will be used by other groups in the summer?
Well, it'd be used by other youth, the Groton youth in town that would have access to this field, right? So Groton Little League softball, Groton Mystic softball.
It's only good for softball.
It is.
How else you have the T-ball?
Yep, but if you think about, previously when we've had multiple middle schools, each middle school had a softball field and then we consolidated. Now we're down to one middle school with one softball field and a high school that has no softball fields. So, both of those sports teams or all of those sports teams need to be able to share one facility.
Fish plays at that softball field.
Right, so where does the middle school play? And I totally agree with you with parking. I can't fix that right now. I wasn't involved in that.
Can't fix it at all.
in that problem either, and I would totally agree with you with accessibility. My father's got Parkinson's and has a very difficult time moving. We have him basically park right here in that handicap spot, and he can barely get to that fence. Right, so to try to get down to a softball game, I would agree with you. I also would agree that I don't think this is not meant for parking, right? So that's a whole nother issue that the school board needs to figure out. And unfortunately, I can't solve it tonight.
I know you can't.
But I hear you.
Not all St. Mary sells out.
Right.
Okay, those are my concerns. All right. Did you want to add anything at this time? Mr. Norris,
I just wanted to make sure that everybody got.
just for the record.
Oh, Rick Norris, I'm at 224 West Shore Avenue. I'm the project manager for the Board of Education on this project. But I just wanted to make sure everybody got a copy of the letter from the superintendent. I don't know if you've seen that.
There's a letter from Mr. Berry from
Yeah,
the right.
Yeah, I brought with me.
Yeah.
If you want to transfer it.
I could read it into the record. It was just submitted today.
Yeah, I just got the superintendent's signature on it this morning.
That's part of it.
I think it's part of the issue, just to go back to your parking concern. I think when the project was made, basically the middle school parking, the use has since expanded into things. So I'll talk to Sam Patrick. We'll look and see what potential for parking maybe between the fields or something, but we have to figure out how to do it. So we'll take a look at it. I mean, the use has expanded exponentially from what the original plan was with the state on the field use.
And ready to speak in favor or in opposition?
Anybody want to speak in favor?
I am 100% in favor.
I'll just state your name and address, please.
Yeah.
Diane Flanapke, 341 Ridgewood Drive, Mystic, and I coach the field hockey team.
Katie Kokomore, 48 Sequin Drive. I coach swimming, so not on the, but my kids have played it all, I used to coach youth lacrosse. And finding fields, it's always hard. So be able to open it up to have night games with lights will take such a stress off all the fields in the town. Definitely for it.
Mark Romano, 117 Deerfield Ridge Drive in Mystic, athletic director at Fitch High School. 100% in favor of the lighting, as Chad mentioned, the usage that field has and the amount of teams that we have, lighting that field would, scheduling wise in particular, would be a huge, I think, relief. Would grant more teams and organizations within our town the opportunity to utilize that facility, whether it's during the week or on the weekend or whatever it may be. But, and I think also not that, with our sports that we offer at the high school in particular, the majority of our schools that we compete against do offer turf facilities lighted. So having our teams have that opportunity to practice and play on that on a daily basis for the most part would be a benefit as well. So.
Ryan McGee, I live at 59 Crosswinds Drive, Groton. I feel like I'm kind of coming at it from three different perspectives. I am definitely in favor of it. I have 3 children in the district. I also am a phys ed teacher at the middle school, and I've coached the high school girls soccer team the last 3 seasons. I'm looking to coach maybe the middle school team this upcoming season. I'm also on the board for Groton Soccer Club. And I've also been involved with like Groton Mystic softball, so I've dabbled in a bunch of different stuff. Anyway, I can tell you from at least the Groton Soccer Club perspective that like right now we have about 12 teams all vying for time on one of the PQ fields for our spring season, just because obviously lacrosse is going on now. So we're all relegated to there. So trying to find time for all of us, and it's a lot of times, I know for me, when we have practice, we have 3 teams all practicing at once, which can be a little tricky. So that in of itself creates some problems. And then we have obviously some of the older kids as well, even our older middle school kids who are in our U15 group. Right now, they don't have access to an actual field that is for their size. So right now, they require a field like the multi-use turf field, and they don't have access to it. Like the field that they have now for their season is actually a U12 size field. So with that, we don't have like a lot of options for them to use and have games. So now you're looking at either they're going away for certain things every weekend, or they are just making do on the smaller field. And as you know, even from our perspective too, and during the fall season, when it is our actual season, PQ doesn't drain all that well. So whenever there's rain or whenever there's issues, we automatically have to cancel. Even if the rain was 2 days prior and it's a beautiful day outside. So having access to something like this would allow our programs to continue without any pause or issues for the families and the children and that kind of stuff. So even from that perspective, I think that that'd be a huge benefit. Not even just for the multi-use field, but for the practice field too. I can tell you just by working up on it, that field drains pretty well. So when you had all this rain and all this stuff where other fields might be closed in town, we'd still have access to that to be able to use it. And as far as the coaching aspect from the middle school to the high school, I mean, it gets dark really quickly, especially as the season goes on in the fall. And then, so now you're running into, you know, as you're approaching state tournament time, you have to cut down your time to maybe like an hour, which obviously isn't really sufficient as you're going into postseason play. And then in regards to, I know that the timing of it, I know you'd mentioned like when would the fields be actually used? We talked about September to June. I would even argue even over the summer, because if you think of summer play, like I can tell you from like at least the soccer team, we did a lot over the summer and we had different trainers come in. So to be able to play later, right, when it's dark outside versus earlier when it's really hot out in the 90s and everything else, obviously that creates health issues for kids. You have to kind of pull back. So be able to play later under the lights in the summer would be huge as well. Not only that, but like I said, I would love for my children as they come up to have this opportunity to use the fields. And I think too, it would open up a possibility for the town and the schools to host different things going forward, right? Where you have different things coming in, whether they be state tournaments and stuff like that, or other kind of tournaments.
Do you want to read that letter for?
Sure, I'll read the letter. From Groton Public Schools, May 10th, 2023, to the Chair, Zoning Board of Appeals, Groton, Connecticut. Dear Sir, as Superintendent of Groton Public Schools, I am the applicant for the project, which will install field lighting on the fields at Groton Middle School. The installation of these lights will be an asset to the school's district and scholastic athletic programs, as both the middle school and high school use these fields. They will allow increased use of the fields in that 2 games can be scheduled for the same afternoon, evening, allowing for one to follow the other. The lighting in the fields will also make them available for after hours for scheduled use by town organizations and provide the potential for fields to host interscholastic tournaments. The addition of the lights to the fields was discussed on numerous occasions during the construction of the school and found to be non-reimbursable by the state as part of the project. Had the lighting been taken on as part of the project, delays to the completion of the school would have ensued due to the need of town council to approve funding and regulatory approvals. The decision was made at that point to complete the school's building project as originally planned and advise the Board of Education that lighting the fields should be taken on by Groton Public Schools as a separate project. To this end, the district approached the town council to fund the lighting of the fields with funding saved during construction of the school. The town council supported this initiative by funding the lightings of the field. As superintendent, I ask that the ZBA give the utmost consideration to the approval of this project and allow for it to proceed as it provides incalculable benefits to the interscholastic athletic programs and school district and other potential uses in the town. Sincerely, Susan L. Austin, Superintendent of Schools. And I also have from memorandum from the Town of Groton Planning and Zoning Commission. At its meeting on May 9th, 2023, Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the referral list above and made the following comment. If the Zoning Board of Appeals decides to grant this variance, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends that it be conditioned on the use of the lighting specifications included in the application.
You want to read, Mr. Ferrier, brother?
May 3rd, 2023, zoning to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Groton, Connecticut, from Mark Berry, Director of Parks, Town of Groton Parks and Recreation Department. Dear ZBA. The Groton Parks and Recreation supports the Board of Education's request for variance to allow the athletic field lighting on Groton Middle School multipurpose fields. The addition of the lighting on the turf field will begin to address the long-standing shortage of athletic fields in Groton. The Town Council recently approved hiring a consulting firm to develop detailed plans and cost estimates for the additional athletic fields on the former Claude Chester School property, Sutton Park, and Fitch High School. The addition of the lights on the athletic fields will extend the availability of the fields to various users groups and improve the utilization of the field. Technology advances in athletic field lighting have taken considerable steps forward in reducing spill lightage or trespass lighting. The Parks and Recreation Department, in collaboration with Groton Little League, successfully initiated lighting at the Calvin Burrows Field adjacent to a residential neighborhood in 2018. The lights allows the league to increase playing time without impacting the neighborhood from spill lighting. We encourage the ZBA to rule favorably and allow the BOE to move forward with the installation of the lights on the athletic fields at Groton Middle School. Respectfully, Mark Berry, Director of Parks and Recreation.
That's already in there, I think.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. Anybody else have any questions? Anything else on the file? Anything else on the file?
That's it.
That's it. Your board running some questions? Anybody else like to speak again?
I just have one question.
Your name again?
If, my name again,
Yeah.
Diane Komaska. So my question is just, if this were to move forward, what is the timeline for the completion? Is there a timeline?
That's our job.
Oh,
From the time of-
been decided yet, or I'm just,
We have to go through the regulatory process. We went
Right.
here. If this is approved, then I go to the planning commission, get that
Right.
approved. We'll be working with the contractor.
So-
Right after this, it's gonna be, no, it's gonna be fallish sometime
installed.
What year?
Field hockey season.
this year, fallish this year.
Specifically for this particular hearing, once a decision is published in the once a decision is published in the newspaper, there's a 15-day appeal period. After that period, then they can continue on with the next process of probably planning and zoning.
But we can talk after.
Thank you.
Anybody else, anything else? If not, we'll close the public hearing at 7:46. Okay. Discussion. Scott?
I think it's very professional, job done presenting this and, explaining the lights and specifically from an engineering technical point of view, and other than the contradiction in the zoning regs. I mean, I don't have any problem with it at all.
What?
I don't have any problem with it.
I think Scott said it well.
Yeah.
I support the application. I think we can probably limit it to the technical specs that were provided by the applicant. So I'd support it.
If we mark that technical specs as an exhibit,
We have,
what
yes.
number is it?
Well, why don't we make this number one, because it was the first one up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this is two, then the superintendent's order is two.
Is that the letter from Austin?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then there, that should therefore be three from Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I had some reservations at the start, but after listening to the excellent presentation from Mr. Frost and answers to my questions, I would be in favor of it too. So if someone would care to make a motion,
We can make a motion, we approve the variance if requested.
and that should be conditioned upon the specs. All right,
Right. Based upon as requested by the zoning. planning and zoning. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the fact that they're one team now.
All right,
So if the motion is to grant a variance subject to the conditions contained in exhibit 1, yes, that's the motion.
and
Okay,
second
I
by
said that.
Floyd.
I'll second.
Lloyd already seconded.
Seconded.
All right.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's granted 5 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck to us.
Oh, yeah.
We have more business to conduct here, so you can.
Thanks all.
Couple out and have a great night. Thank you.
Oh,
I'll mark it up.
Years ago, I did a job at the Academy,
You can take that.
and we added.
okay.
Big parking area.
Yeah.
It's for your review.
The light spec. Well,
An action
of course,
item.
the photometric plan.
It's not an action item, no.
The bulbs and the 250-watt halogens. Yeah. And nobody really took that into consideration, how related to the photometric plan.
Yeah.
And one night, it was in the fall, late fall, we turned those on. Oh, my God. I wound up in front of the board. I'm just a country.
Any correspondence, Tom?
You're not gonna have that comment.
There's
Look
no
at
other
traffic
correspondence.
Okay, now minutes for a package.
Yeah.
Somebody, you may have function.
I move that we approve the minutes of the April 26th meeting as presented.
Second by Scott. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, passed unanimously. Old business.
No old business.
How about new?
There is a reg amendment proposed for multi-unit storage and parking text amendments. So
The FYI.
it is, I don't know if you had a chance to review it or if you wanted to discuss it or check it out.
Anybody want to discuss these
I can go through it real quick.
parking and electric,
I can read it. The project description is an amendments to section 2.1 definitions, 5.1-8.G.2 multi-unit dwellings. 5.1-8.H.9 multi-unit dwelling conversion. 8.2-4 table of parking requirements, 8.2-4.B.4 and 6 electric vehicles off-street parking requirements, and 8.2-17 bicycle parking and 8.2-17.D internal facilities. Reasons for each amendment is adding definitions for electric vehicle charging requirements, adding minimum storage requirements for recreational equipment, including kayaks and bicycles, adding clarification to electric vehicle parking requirements, expanding requirements for bicycle parking for multi-unit development.
thank you. New application,
There'll be one new application that will be at the first meeting in June for 162 Bayview.
all right, staff report,
Other than the Federation Quarterly Newsletter, there's no other staff report.
okay, motion to adjourn. Scott,
Second.
Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're done at 7:52.
If it's